Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the GCP Executive Board. The first item on the agenda today is the election of chairperson. Can I call for nominations, please? Yeah, Councillor Holloway.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Brian Milnes, please.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Dupre. Just to check, no further nominations? Those in favour of Councillor Milnes being appointed chair? That's unanimous. I therefore declare Councillor Milnes chair of the Executive Board. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Excuse the delay while I get my paperwork sorted out. So the next item on our agenda is the appointment of a vice chair for the Executive Board. Are there any nominations? I'll nominate Cameron Holloway. Thank you. Laura, I don't know if you want to do a second for Cameron. Thank you. So Cameron, you are duly appointed as vice chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is yes, a welcome to the two recently involved members, Cameron Holloway, who is leader of the City Council, and Lorna, who's deputy leader at the County Council. So welcome both. I'm relatively old-timer, but in mentioning new appointees, we should recognise the leaving members of the Executive Board, Lisa Machini, who was our chair for 4 years, and Mike Davey, who was our city representative for 2 years or so. And particularly with Elisa, with her dedication to the GCP and its aspirations, we should note those with gratitude for the amount of time and effort she put into this organisation. We also would note that we have lost other members of our Executive Board. It's disappointing to mention the resignation of Andy Williams. Unfortunately, Dermot, who we were expecting today, is unable to be here now. He's apparently stuck in rail traffic, but his predecessor, Andy Neely, was a great contributor to this organisation and to this board. And Andy Williams will be sorely missed, and I'm sorry about the fact that he's not continuing. We will await deliberations on the future of the Business Board and seek on advice on a replacement that fulfills the terms of the original City deal, which was signed back in 2014, which was before the inception of the combined authority. So let's just move on to the next item, and it's perfect timing because it's to welcome our new Mayor, Paul Bristow. Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon. And welcome. And actually, as it's at my discretion, I'd like to say, yes, we're more than happy to continue the practice of inviting the Mayor as an observer to the meeting. And Yorkshire Tyke to Yorkshire Tyke, I invite you to introduce yourself to the board. Thank you.
Well, that's very kind of you, Chair, and I accept your invitation in the spirit in which it's intended, and I'm very, very pleased to be here. So I'm Paul Bristow, I'm the Mayor of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. This is my first GCP meeting, and I'm looking forward to finding out what you guys are discussing.
Very good. Let me just make sure I move on. Yes, I mean, there's been some correspondence about that, and perhaps we'll move on to at a later date, but I just alluded to the fact that the business board was a member subsequent to the LEP being one of the original signatories. And if that's in doubt, we obviously need to work out how the mayor and the his board may or may not be represented. So you want to respond?
No, I think it's vitally important that the combined authority is represented on this board. I have my own views on how I think that would best be arranged, but I would look forward to talking to you about that, perhaps after the meeting or outside the meeting. But I've got very strong views on how I think the combined authority should be represented on the GCP.
We'll talk about that later.
Good. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, I've mentioned apologies for absence. Dermot is unable to be here. I don't think we've got any more. We're all present and intact. Thanks, Nick. And have we got any declarations of interest from members? No. And that brings us on to the minutes of the last meeting. Has anybody got anything to say about the minutes of the meeting, or is that a representation of the meeting that we held? Let me just see. Was that back 19th of March? Goodness me, that seems an awful long time ago. Okay, so I can sign those as an approved record of that meeting. Thank you. So I'll refer to questions from members of the public, and there are two public questions. Item 9, Waterbeach Railway Station, there is one question, and similarly item 10, the Barton Greenway, there is one question. What we would normally do, and I'm going to suggest this, is that we take those questions at the beginning of the items in question. So if everybody's happy with that, that's what we shall do, which is our normal practice. And again, our normal custom and practice with scrutiny, our scrutiny body, the Joint Assembly, which I welcome Simon Smith to as the new chair of the Assembly. And what we would normally do, if you're happy, Simon, is to take comments from the Joint Assembly as the items come forward, and I'll call you to speak on them if you're happy to do that. Thank you. So the next item is our quarterly progress report, and I'm happy to introduce Niamh to introduce that report and give us her officer presentation. Niamh.
Thank you, Chair. So just to kind of remind or induct new members around this report. So you'll see this report at each of your meetings. It's an overview of how the programme's going, how specific projects are going, and any kind of relevant feedback or updates on various important bits and pieces. Sometimes it will ask you to decide things, and sometimes it will just be an update of progress as it is today. So we're not asking you specifically to make any decisions on this report. But perhaps given the stage you are in your meeting cycle, given that it's your annual meeting, I might pull out a couple of things, Chair, if that's okay with you.
Of course it is, yeah.
And I guess the first, which you would expect, is that we did get good news around the Gateway Review. So your final tranche of funding has been approved by government. We got really positive feedback particularly around stakeholder engagement and progress across the delivery of the programme and how we're evaluating. So I know that that's been public knowledge now for several weeks, but just to let you know that here formally.
We might leave just mention for any newbies the value of that tranche of funding. So the city deal was split into 3 tranches. The first, I think, was 100 million. The second was 200, and this final one was the final 200 million. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So that's the kind of the headline, I guess. A couple more things. Again, given where you are in your meeting cycle, I guess to point you to page 45 of this report, which sets out what you've done, what's been completed. The list, the table's getting longer, which is good. I hope you think. That includes some major transport schemes as well as progress across the rest of the programme since the inception of the work. So just to draw your attention to that. I guess more positive stuff around inward investment, and we note that anyway, but reflecting on the last kind of 12 to 18 months, we did extract £20 million from the government around the energy grids infrastructure work. We have extracted further money from various organisations to the tune of nearly 16 million across the SMART programme. So again, I guess I'm drawing your attention to positive things, Chair. There may be more that you want to draw out, but that's, I think, where I'll leave it for any questions that the board might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Neve. I invite questions or comments from the members. Cameron.
Thank you very much for the update. I was looking at the table on page 20 and 21 of our packs, which sets out the overview of transport delivery. And there's a lot there, as you said, which is good, but there's also a lot still to be delivered. And I just wondered if you could comment on the capacity to deliver all of those schemes in the coming years, because it's a lot of work, a lot of important work, and we want to make sure that that does take place in a timely fashion.
I'll pick that up. So the capacity of the partnership has grown significantly in recent years as we've moved pretty much from a development project and program development phase into a delivery phase. So we're probably at peak capacity at the moment. We are now, for the majority of these schemes, now taking them through some form of planning or consents process, for which we're getting external support, the final detailed design, and then working very closely with county council colleagues on procurement and physical delivery. So that will of course continue. You're right, that will be a challenge for the next sort of 5, 6 or so years on delivery. But I think as was recognised through the Gateway review process, we are where we needed to be. So I think there was an expectation way back in 2014, before any of us were around, that this is sort of where we would be going through the final Gateway. And I think government has recognised that. What we've got to ensure now is we don't take our foot off the gas, and we make sure we continue to have that delivery capacity to deliver this programme.
Thank you. Simon, I don't know whether you've got any comment from... Oh, sorry, Lorna, as an executive board member, I should call you first, please.
Okay, thank you. Clearly it's good news about the Gateway review. That's excellent and very much to be welcomed. The County Council, as the applicant on the busways, will be taking safety, of course, very, very seriously and continue to do so. It will take the design and delivery of the busways through its governance arrangements and will ensure that lessons learned from the guided busway will be included in the process. We have also approved at County Council Highways and Transport Committee a report to allocate funding to address flooding issues on the busway. The question I have on this one is also about the delivery, but from a slightly different angle. Some of the dates on here are 2027 forecast completion, and things may slip. Now, for good reasons, there is some work that this body does, that extends into East Cambridgeshire and into Huntingdonshire, to St Ives, to Bottisham, to the Swaffhams. And after 2027, unless the government chooses a model of local government organisation that is not currently on the table, either Huntingdonshire or East Cambridgeshire, or both, will not be represented at the GCP as it currently stands, and therefore will have no say or influence on things that directly affect residents there if these timetables slip. So my question is, what is the GCP's view of its consideration of governance going forwards, and how those issues will be managed in the context of changing boundaries to local authorities? Thank you.
So as the officer in the group, I think that question is actually rather above our pay grade, in that the Greater Cambridge Partnership is a statutory joint committee of the County Council under the 1972 Act. The statutory partners decide who represents it, and it's managed on that basis. And you're right, we actually have slightly different arrangements where we go over the border, so we have far more contact with some of those local district and county councillors than we would ordinarily have, because it's going through their patch. Now, this body will form part of the considerations that you're all having around local government review, and it will be a question that you will be asked when it gets to that time. I mean, in one sense, because there's a defined programme, and by 2027, all of the design and the alignment issues should probably already have been done, if not delivered, then it should then be a case of getting on and delivering it, right? So in terms of the sort of key political decisions, they should have passed. But if they haven't, then there's going to need to be consideration as part of those LGR sort of discussions that are ongoing. But the GCP will simply plug in and play to that. We don't have a view. We're here to serve the sort of geography that we work in.
But if I may come back, I think what I'm suggesting is that there ought to be a piece of work that starts to consider that, and I appreciate that it is ultimately a political decision and not an officer decision how these things are managed, but nonetheless there may well be things to manage in this, and I guess I'm asking is there a process that we can kick off that at least starts to consider how those issues might fall out and how we deal with them in the event that things overrun?
So from an officer perspective, I will take that action to work with the chief executives of the three authorities to make sure that this is not forgotten and that there's a clear plan for dealing with it.
And I'm pretty sure from a political perspective that that's going to be part and parcel of it. It's a significant part of our development work in the area, and so, you know, we will have to give that due consideration. However, the borders of the new unitary councils are determined by the political class, and in Westminster particularly, yeah. Thank you. So, I was slightly premature, so Simon, would you like to report back on your considerations of the quarterly report? Thank you.
Well, first of all, the Chair, congratulations on your appointment. I'm sure you'll continue to serve the GCP with distinction, as you always have. Thank you. In respect to the safety of the busways, this issue was raised at the Assembly, further to the tragic fatalities and injuries on the existing busway. A request was made for assurance about incorporating the necessary safety measures in the design, construction and operation of the new busways. So for the purposes of public transparency and accountability in the decision-making process, the Assembly requested the officers to present GCP's procedures for safety reviews at each stage of busway projects and with the County Council on safety assessments. Thank you.
We work hand in glove with the County Council, and as you would expect, and we will happily collectively come back when there's something to report on the next step in that process.
Was there anything else? Thank you. Okay. I think I'd just like to draw out a couple of things. Niamh's already mentioned the Gateway Review, which is obviously a relief and good to hear that the government has confidence in the programme. I think I'd also like to mention the delivery of active travel schemes, such as the improvements to Milton and Histon roads, for example, which has seen a really big, significant increase in both cycle journeys and pedestrian journeys. We've, as part of the CSET programme, the phase 1 of CSET, we've built a new roundabout and other road improvements to ease congestion in that area. And we're particularly proud of the continued progress we make on building out 150 kilometres of greenway across the region, which are all part of our dedication to improving active travel. Cameron, you wanted to comment?
Yes, not on that, I'm afraid, but I did have a further question to come back with. Yes, so I was just wanting to highlight the skills delivery, which is on page 29, which is an area of the GCP's work that I think sometimes doesn't get talked about, but actually if you look at that table, there's quite a bit of good work that's been done. How long is that going to continue for, and what further work is going to be done in that area?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Holloway. So at your last board meeting, you approved funding for a further 2 years of that work. That will go until April 2027. We're working with colleagues across the ecosystem, particularly with skills colleagues at the Combined Authority, to understand how this can be sustained and potentially broadened across the broader geography.
Thank you. So, if there are no more comments, we'll move on to the next item, which I've got my papers in order. Should be the Waterbeach Railway Station from pages 54 to 64 in our agenda pack, and this is going to be also introduced by Niamh, please. Oh, let me just read my notes a little further, because I should explain how we're going to deal with this. So first of all, we're going to take the public question, have a response to that public question, receive office presentation, and then joint assembly feedback, and then we can debate that on the board. Thank you. Niamh.
So I think you've got a public question. Here's Josh. Here. Got a public question from Josh Grantham.
Sorry, Josh. Excuse my naivety and novelty of doing this.
No, thank you, Chair. At the last Joint Assembly meeting, no answer was given to our specific question on where the demand for 91 car parking spaces is drawn from in the 2050 scenario, which compares the new station location with the existing station. So that's table 3.3. This highlights a key flaw in the business case. It attributes 80% of the passenger growth to the new town, but then seemingly uses this total growth to justify the growth in the car park for the existing Waterbeach village. This is not correct, as new residents will not access the station through the village. SLC, the consultant responsible for both the outline business case and the full business case, has made this same error twice. Yet this flawed assumption continues to underpin support for the 200 space car park, which is around 120 more than we calculate is needed. We asked the GCP to commit to meet with SOC and an independent transport professional to review this part of the business case. If our assessment is correct, and the GCP can still address the issue by working with planning colleagues to amend the application, either to resize the car park or deliver it in phases, savings can then be redirected to much needed station facilities that have been well discussed at the GCP. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll invite Niamh to respond. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks, CamCycle, for coming along and submitting a question. So, Waterbeach Station has an approved planning permission to remind folk of that. We are operating, in that context. As part of that planning permission, as Josh pointed out, a 200 space car park has been allowed for. As stated at the joint assembly and kind of set out in the full business case, this is for average usage. So actually having 200 spaces allows for peak periods. And by ensuring an adequately sized car park, users are less likely to park in nearby residential areas, and that's been a point of lots of discussion and debate from local members, I think, as well as some of those here. However, and I think officers made this point at the joint assembly, we're committed to working with the planning authority to look at this further and to understand a little more around any potential for change. And of course, given the nature of these schemes, it will continue to promote the use of active travel to the station, and there'll be a really significant number of secure cycle parking being provided there too. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And let me invite Simon Smith to comment on behalf of the Joint Assembly now. Oh, sorry. I'm out of order, literally, and I need to present a report now.
Forgive me, Chair. I think that's the right order. I hope.
Nothing to forgive.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Waterbeach Railway Station full business case. That's the key element of the paper in front of you. Colleagues here, Paul, I'd like to introduce Paul McGuigan from SLC Rail, our specialist consultants. There may well be questions around progress on the scheme that Paul's kindly come to answer. So a bit of history, I suppose, to remind the board and the public how we got to where we've got to. So we were asked a few years ago to get involved in this project, and I think it's fair to say that everyone agreed it was it was the result of all other options having been exhausted. Essentially, is how we find ourselves here. Homes England then became involved as a partner on the project. And this proposal now includes a funding package from them of just over £23 million. That's coming from Homes England as a repayable grant via the 106 agreement from the developer. So having done the detailed work around the full business case, we're now asking the board to approve that. In terms of a reminder around the strategic case for this work, there's a planning condition that stipulates that this station must move in order to bring forward the next phase of Waterbeach development. That's around 4,500 homes. So that's what this is about. That continues to be about the kind of key role that this body, that this statutory committee plays in growth, essentially. I might pick up a couple of points from the Joint Assembly Chair, if I can, just as a kind of concluding remark. There was lots of discussion, as you might expect, from the Joint Assembly around facilities. And I suppose what I just want to do is remind the board that the rail industry gets to decide what facilities go where. That's how this process works. So just to kind of share that again. Having said that, what I think is really important to remember is that we've got an opportunity to work with the local planning authority around safeguarding land for the future and around thinking about what the long-term sustainable placemaking is of the place around the station. So that may well be where we end up playing a part, Chair. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Niamh. So I should just remind members that paragraph 4.4 of the agenda pack explains the full version of the full business case, and it's confidential. So if we want to talk about that at all, we would need to go into private session. I don't anticipate that we will do, but I need to have mentioned that. So Niamh's introduced the report, and I'll now invite Simon now to report on the Assembly's view of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously there's a lot of local interest in the Waterbeach railway station, and Assembly members requested that the design and the facilities for the station both in the short term and the long term, reflect the station's role as a gateway to the new town, and also as a multimodal transport interchange, whilst recognising, just as Niamh has pointed out, that this is very much in the hands of the rail industry. But nevertheless, it's an opportunity to promote the provision of suitable facilities. The best step available to us at the moment is for the officers to engage with local councillors as the reserve matters applications are brought through, so they have their full engagement and involvement.
Excuse me, can you just pull your mic closer to people having trouble hearing?
Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So the best available opportunity for engagement with the local council and interested parties at this stage is to have full engagement in respect of the reserve matters applications as they're brought forward, and particularly those in relation to materials and the landscaping. So that's essentially what the Assembly were feeding back, and they too have an eye on the longer term and the opportunities that the safeguarding land present for widening the scope and extent of the facilities that are going to support the station's future roles.
And again, I'd like to just compliment the Assembly on its diligence in these matters. It's always useful, and whenever I can, I listen into your meetings, so I get a flavour of that. And definitely your report is an accurate reflection of that. Thank you very much. We now have an option to discuss that amongst the board members. If anybody would like to go first. So I'll kick things off. I was on the original planning committee here at South Cambs District Council when we looked at this plan, and we felt it was imperative that we establish from as early as possible that the railway was going to be the dominant transport type, and that we wanted to establish a railway station that was able to serve both the existing community and the developing new community. The developing new community. So it was very disappointing, really, that we were unable to secure the building of this by the developers as they had promised at that planning committee. And we have had to step into the breach, the gap, and we are doing so with a lot of public funding that is critical to make sure that that project happens. We also have in that planning material, as alluded to by Niamh, work on the area in and around the train station as it is developed, which in the long term, I'm sure will provide the quality and type of amenities that we would expect in what will become a very busy station. And I think, personally, I have no hesitation in going through the recommendations for this. So, Cameron or Lorna? Cameron, please.
Thank you very much. The issue's been raised a few times about the facilities and the amenities that you mentioned. They're both in the surrounding area and at the station itself. So although I recognise those are not something we can make a decision on today, can we reassure the public that we will be continuing to engage with the relevant, you said the rail industry will decide on the facilities. Can we reassure the public that we will continue to engage in order to make sure that there is a good level of facilities available at the station, even though we can't actually make the decision on what those will be today?
Thank you, that's clear. Lorna?
Right. Okay. So, thank you. I sounded like a great build-up to. I'm not sure it's going to be the greatest speech of all time, but yes, I was just going to follow on from the facilities question as to whether the expectation is that there will be facilities that will be developed within the station itself to serve the population that uses it, or whether there's a suggestion that this might be part of a longer term quarter that might include some of the amenities that might not therefore need to be included within the station itself and as part of that project. Do we have any clarity about how the time scale within which that sort of decision is going to be moved? Will it be driven by what's available at the moment, and will there therefore be a gap in provision of basic amenities until we get that sort of longer term quarter vision in place?
Thanks for your question. So we need to work with the planning authority to understand the art of the possible, and we'll continue to do that.
We're working on it. And I think we should and do recognise the absolute requirement. If we're going to establish this as the primary mode of transport in and out of Waterbeach Newtown, that needs to be functioning on every level. So, thank you. Let me just check my notes. I think we're come to the end of that discussion. We've spoken at length about the salient parts. We want to agree the full business case for the railway station. We're looking to delegate authority to the interim director of the GCP to enter into the required contracts for the construction of the station and associated works, and to note the closure process that is being taken forward by Network Rail. Are we agreed with those recommendations? We are. Thank you. Unanimously agreed with those recommendations. Thank you. So we are on to item 10, which is the Barton Greenway. This is also a full business case in our agenda pack 65 to 74, and this is going to be introduced by Peter Blake. We'll have the public question first. We'll have a response to that, a representation from partner body representatives. I believe we've got some local councillors who would like to speak. We're going to respond to that representation if necessary. We'll receive the officer presentation. We'll go to the joint assembly feedback, and then we'll debate it ourselves. So thank you. With public question, I believe we're back to Josh from CampCycle. Thank you.
Thank you. The joint assembly discussion on the Barton Greenway reinforces a concern we've long raised. Scrutiny in the current GCP framework isn't functioning as it should. Assembly members are having to assess technical aspects of the schemes without timely context, often years after decisions are already set. GCP officers, caught between competing stakeholder views, time-limited meetings, are left trying to present schemes that can satisfy everybody, which is, of course, an impossible task. Meanwhile, members are left wondering, after hearing consistent support for greenways, why contentions are still arising at these final stages. We need a better process here, one that cuts through the noise to identify how schemes are working, where concerns remain, and how much weight to give to those concerns. Only then can the GCP decision makers proceed with clarity and confidence they need to support those schemes. We ask again for the GCP to review its scrutiny process. For example, bringing independent voices in, such as Active Travel England. This would help ensure that the Greenway schemes are delivering against their original objectives rather than becoming a watered-down search for absolute consensus from every stakeholder. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter, are you going to respond? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So a significant amount of scrutiny takes place on Greater Cambridge Partnership Schemes, and you've described some of it. It does include a technical review process by the County Council, a series of workshops through the project life cycle and project development with both stakeholders and also public consultations. We then have the formal decision-making process, which is prescribed within the City Deal arrangement. So this work goes to the Joint Assembly for review. It then comes to the Executive Board for a final decision. Active Travel England are involved in reviewing GCP projects, as well as a number of other stakeholders, and will continue to be. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have members of the council that want to speak? I'm sorry, we're looking first of all for Hugh Clough from Cambridge City Council. Hugh, welcome.
Dear GCP executive members, I raised the issue of the bulk path at agenda item 10 of the GCP Assembly on the 19th of June, Barton Greenway business case. But I would like to ask members to refer to 3 specific pages of the full business case document, page 11, page 44 and page 45. Now, if I could have the slides that I requested up, thank you very much. So if you look at that, slide 1 shows figure 1.2, shows the bulk path running, and the bulk path, if you imagine the mouth of a snake, it runs just to the east, sorry, to the west of where Grantchester starts and runs northwards and diagonally across. So it's the path in red running within effectively the mouth of the snake. The bulk path runs, slide 2, if I can, slide 2 shows the current AMAT data for the bulk path. 15 walkers and 3 cyclists. Slide 3 shows just the bottom of the table of the predicted AMT data. 16 walkers and 4 cyclists, a net increase of 1 pedestrian and 1 cyclist per day. Slide 4, if I could have a look at that as well, that shows the bulk path just west of its northerly end, where you can see it as a walking path on the edge of Cambridge with a natural feel and countryside views, much loved by Newnham Ward and Cambridge residents. The route is a complete outlier to the Barton Greenway and will never be used for active travel to work. It should never have been included in the scheme. At the Assembly, I asked the members to stop and agree that it should now be removed from the Barton Greenway in order to protect this precious bridleway from being ruined forever. There was considerable support for this view, and I would ask the GCP executive to support that proposal to exclude the bulk path from the Barton Greenway. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think that needs a response now. We can debate that unless you want. Do you want to respond?
So probably just a couple of things. So the technical response was given at the Assembly around business case assessment process, which is not ours. It's His Majesty's government, and it's not perfect, and essentially requires extrapolation on existing usage. Of course, having seen that photograph, there's not a lot of existing cycle usage on that. The reality would be, if you put this provision in, that it will encourage significant numbers of cyclists. I think just a couple of important points. One is that the Greenway would run alongside and not over the bridleway, which I think is an important consideration in that sense. And I think the other point links back to the public question we had around Camp Cycle, that the stakeholder groups, public consultations, which we've had 2, it's been to the Joint Assembly and this board on 3 previous occasions, and has been endorsed at each point. So we need to reflect on, if we were going to make changes, what we'll do next. But I will pick that up in my report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have Councillor Peter Rees? Thank you. Are you also from the City Council?
No, I'm not from the City Council. I'm from the County Council. Thank you very much, Chair. Dear GCP executive members, as I've just made clear, I am from the County Council and I'm a councillor for Newnham. My name is Dr. Peter Rees. I'm here because residents have conveyed to me their deep concerns about the GCP's proposal to pave over their much-loved bulk countryside pathway. I support and echo Councillor Clough's comments that inclusion of the bulk pathway in the Barton Greenway simply doesn't fit the route, and there does not seem to be a business case. Just to pick up on a couple of comments that you just made, if I may, you said that the reality is that there would be to encourage a significant numbers of cyclists. Well, I'm afraid I'm persuaded by the figures that have been provided. They don't show this. So what is the basis for that view of reality? Is it just a hunch? You know, are we really going to invest that much money, of taxpayers' money, just on a hunch? You also mentioned CamCycle, but CamCycle have previously said that this would be not a good use of taxpayer money as well. So as I understand it, the Greenway vision and the aim of the Barton Greenway is to provide a safe passage for active travel from Barton to Cambridge. So if this is so, to me, the inclusion of the bulk in the Barton Greenway seems to be spurious. It just doesn't make sense. Also, your GCP member Thomas Fitzpatrick kindly shared with me that the cost just for this section of the bulk, which seems supererogatory, not necessary, would be to the tune of £2.5 million. Value for taxpayers' money should be the priority for this board. I do think that if there is a business case, I'm not able to see it. So I urge you as County Councillor for Newnham to reconsider the bulk section of the scheme, to save this beautiful countryside path and millions of pounds of taxpayer money to spend it in a more fiscally and environmentally responsible way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Peter, would you like to respond to that all?
I'll pick that up in my report, if that's okay.
Thank you. Okay. So let's, I think if I get the order right, back to joint assembly feedback, or no, we'll have your presentation first, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, so just to give some headlines I've touched on already, this has been previously considered by public consultation twice, the Joint Assembly and the Executive Board. The full business case is strong, 1.7 across the entire scheme, and progress has been made both in terms of planning applications, land access, and construction is currently planned. Picking up on the point on the bulk path, and I'm sure Councillor Smith will pick up on it because it was a key point at the Assembly. Obviously, there are benefits of it being an off-road option for cyclists and people wishing to avail themselves. As I've said, it runs alongside the bulk. It doesn't run over it, and it's previously received significant amounts of support. So I think if the board were minded to reflect further on it, from an officer perspective, we might want them to engage with the wider community that we've engaged with previously, because we've had a number of different voices and different views on this. And I quote one by way of example. I know that Grantchester Parish Council, for example, have been supportive. So I think what it would be helpful if the board were minded that we'd want to take a litmus test of everyone that we've engaged with previously on what the next steps for this might be. I'll pause there, Chair, and try and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Well, let's turn to Simon for his report from the Joint Assembly, who did discuss this at some length.
Indeed, we did, Chair, and a full report of that is set out in section 3 on page 67 of the agenda in front of you. But I'll give you a summary of the main points. I think that, first of all, the Assembly expressed support for the Barton Greenway and the overall programme for the Greenways network. They're very enthusiastic about it. We heard the representations that have just been made at the Assembly, and that did raise doubt about the bulk path in the context of the estimated additional journeys and existing alternative provision. However, we do know that these doubts are not shared universally. So the Assembly does not wish to cause any delay in the delivery of Greenways, and this one included, but did request the Executive Board to receive further information so that a better informed decision can be made. Thank you.
Very good. We'll move now to a debate with the Executive Board. I don't know if either of you want to go first. Cameron, please.
Thank you very much. I should just make clear for those watching that I am a Newnham City Councillor as well. So I know the bulk path well. I go walking and running there myself and very much enjoy it. It does have a very nice rural character. It isn't used a huge amount, partly for that reason, and that's what shows up in those figures. Clearly, it's not a cycle route currently, so I'm not surprised that there are low numbers of cyclists. There's also a fairly low number of people walking, although quite a lot of people do enjoy it for leisure reasons or for walking their dogs, those kinds of things. I think it is important to highlight what Peter has said, that actually the path would be alongside the existing path, other than a couple of short sections. It would not be about paving over the existing sort of grassy, muddy path. It would be about actually doing something next to that, so people could still walk on that path if they preferred to do that. I think some really important questions have been raised, and value for money, of course, is something that we have to take very seriously. This, compared to some of the other greenway schemes, is not one that is going to be used by really large numbers of people, so it's not the absolute priority in terms of greenway schemes as far as I see it. It is, however, I think a positive scheme overall. I think it provides a very safe route, and that is an important part of the schemes. We are obviously talking about getting people to work, but we're also talking about getting people opportunities to enjoy cycling for leisure, or to be able to cycle in a safe way in places that are scenic, and that those second two, I think, are very much fulfilled by this scheme. So there might be people who wouldn't want to come alongside and then cross over Grantchester Road, but actually they, as part of the Hastingfield Greenway, but actually they might feel a lot more comfortable going along the bulk path on an off-road route, even if it does take slightly longer. So I think having that choice is good. I think this could be a really positive scheme. It's also got significant biodiversity enhancements associated with it. I think that the suggestion from the officers makes sense in that it's not the absolute priority. Clearly there have been concerns raised at the Joint Assembly meeting, and we should respond to that. We should also acknowledge the concerns raised by members of the public and by other councillors, and we should reflect further. I think we should move forward with this. I don't think we should not do it, but I think some further work with members of the public and looking further at potential data related to this would be really helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. I'd like to speak on 2 points relating to this report. The first one is the bulk path, and I'll come to that first because it's been the focus of most debate here so far. And the other one is something separate. Thinking about the bulk path, first of all, I was delighted to be introduced to it by this report. I had never been there before, and took the opportunity of a walk there. I can attest that, all right, it was between 5 and 6 p.m. or so, 5 and 6:15 on a Friday evening, and we met one other person coming in the other direction. So I can attest that it's not exactly a traffic jam situation for pedestrians or any other users, certainly not at that time, but it was utterly charming. I'm not convinced by the figures in the business case that have been brought to this body's attention tonight in the slides we saw. The figures suggest that the increase in usage resulting from this part of the Barton Greenway is minimal. And I've not heard anything other than well, this is always wrong and it will always be better than that, to convince me otherwise. I looked at that business case and I thought, this just doesn't stack up. Why that much expenditure on that much extent of this additional piece to the Greenway for so little apparent gain in terms of usage, and I remain unconvinced by that. This has all been quite fast moving in that I've had several late representations, as I'm sure other members have, on this Greenway. But as I understand it, the support of Grantchester Parish Council, which was mentioned a moment ago, for the bulk path, is contingent, as I believe CamCycles is, and I stand to be corrected on this, I've read this in haste, is contingent on an additional piece of Greenway, a cross-field piece of Greenway that would then connect to the bulk path, which is not in the current report. And I'm not sure that I'm clear whether if that additional piece of Greenway were not to happen, whether the support for the bulk path from those two bodies would still be in place and would still be as strong as it apparently is. So I would welcome some guidance on that. So I'm in something of a quandary on this. I would be inclined, and I'm conscious that I'm new to this board in this, I would be inclined, if I were dictator for a day, simply to say, look, just not do it. Let's just scrub out sections 8 and 9 and not do it. I'm hearing, however, that there has been considerable work and a degree of support for that. So I think what I am asking is for a further review of the benefits and risk associated with elements 8 and 9 of the path, and to come back to a future meeting once that has been done. And my other ask is that this Greenway seems very contingent on and integrally bound up with the Haslingfield Greenway, which is, I think, one of the last to be delivered. And I would like some clarity about the degree of assurance that we all have that the Haslingfield Greenway will not alter in any way that affects the relationship of the Barton Greenway to it, with or without the bulk path. Because if it depends on connections at several points to the Haslingfield Greenway, which then, for whatever reason, change, just as previous greenways have changed as they've gone through their iterations, that's also an issue. So that's the bulk path for me, and I'm asking for that review to be done, particularly in the light of the additional crossfield piece that's being suggested, and also some greater assurance about the numbers and why we shouldn't believe the business case. The second thing I wanted to say something about is equestrians. And I have received today very late representations to me from the British Horse Society, which they asked me to draw to your attention, and I wondered whether that might be something I could do, please, Chair.
I'm slightly dubious that that's not the normal procedure for people that want to make comment. So I'm not sure that we should allow that and through you.
Can I test the water and see whether that's possible?
Perhaps if we...
The Horse Society say they would have attended the meeting today, but they cannot, and they were wondering whether I would be able to provide members with some information.
I'm loath to... I'm quite happy, as long as this is quick, for you to do that.
Right, okay. They make 2 points. The first one is about the fact that there is now increasing recognition. I think debates at the Combined Authority and the County Council have seemed more minded to include the needs of equestrians up front in everything we do on active travel. And they're looking for that. But the specific points are about inclusion for equestrians from the Haggis Farm direction, and there's livery for 60 horses there alone, and the adjacent livery yard, and for horses from the Barton direction within the off-road safe provision for cyclists to access the bridleway. They are looking for that, and also for design of better crossings with a button suitably placed, which helps horse riders to use signalling, but also hand-propelled cycles, recumbent cycles, cargo bikes, and people with disabilities and on trikes, and whether we can look at a more inclusive system of button pushes for crossings and so on, and that there must be clarity for and responsibility for the creation of the replacement bridleway section after the motorway bridge towards Cambridge. They say the existing bridleway is going to be taken.
Quite a long list,
for
Councillor
this is
Dufresne.
2 of 2. The existing bridleway is going to be taken for the cycle path, a new bridleway to be created. That path will take 3 years to establish, rolling, seeding, mowing out and so on. And they want certainty that there will be completion, and that must be written into the contracts, and that there must be clear responsibility and accountability for managing that. Thank you, and maintaining it.
Thank you. Before I comment and try and wrap this up, I think Paul Bristow, the Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to just comment on the issue, and I just wanted to say I'm very convinced by the two questioners, the councillors. I must admit to not knowing this area particularly well, the Balk Path, but I feel there's a certain sort of irony that this is a greenway, and we're talking about paving over, in effect, a countryside setting, and a further sort of irony that this is called a greenway, and we're failing to take a green councillors with us on this journey, and there's a certain sort of irony there, which we probably should think about. So I would want to support, if insofar as my comments influence anything, Councillor Dupre's suggestion that the element of the bulk pathway is reviewed, and I would hope that this would be a meaningful review where we go back to those people who did comment in the past on this issue, and we go back and we listen again to what people want to say, and we make a meaningful consideration based upon that feedback.
Thank you. So I think we've all been saying some similar things about what we want to do with this proposal. And the first is that in general we want to support this, but we have significant reservations on the balks. My own are over a value for money. I'm really concerned that we build something that isn't particularly well used, and if it's in the range of £2 million as a cost, that's going to be a lot of pounds per footstep or rolling wheels for this path. And as it's an additional route, I just don't see how we can support it in its current state. So I agree with the proposal to take this back, to reconsider those views, those consultations that we've done, and bring it back to the board when we've revised our proposal. Is that acceptable? Sorry, Cameron.
I didn't understand it necessarily as revising the actual proposal. I think your comments there have suggested that you don't like the proposal in its current form. I thought it was more about reviewing the business case and hearing more from residents, but that we may still then, once that's done, if residents are amenable, continue with it as it is. I don't think we would necessarily change the route or the proposal, in my view anyway.
Okay, are you happy with that, Lorna?
I'm not sure about that, because I'm not sure what the point of the exercise is if we don't have the potential to change our minds. My proposal was around looking again at sections 8 and 9, at the benefits, at the risks, and considering then whether it should be included, bearing in mind the previous discussions that have been had and the representations on both sides that have been made.
And that was my understanding too. So
that's okay.
So always happy, Chair. So just to clarify, sorry, in terms of using the Mayor's wording, so you want a meaningful review that will then be brought back for your consideration?
Yes. Thank you.
And if I could be so bold, so in terms of the wider route, there was certainly a sense from the Assembly of the sort of get on with the rest of it. The Balk appears to be the area that was in dispute. And so is that a sense for this meeting as well? Get on with the rest of it, but review the Balk.
That's exactly a summary of where I'm at with that. Lorna?
with the comments that I made about the provision for equestrians along that specific point, because I do think that needs to be looked at.
But we can certainly take those requests into account when we're considering that. Are you happy with that, Peter? Okay, thank you. So I think we've concluded all our business for today, if I've got that right. The only thing that we need to do now is look at the date of future meetings, and the proposal is to meet again on Thursday, the 8th of November at 4 p.m. Venue to be decided. Thank you. So call the meeting to a close. Thank you all for coming and making your presentations.